So, if you are watching this video, chances are you are a freelancer whenever it comes to AI automations, or you're trying to start your own AI agency and you're stuck in an area where you either don't know who to sell these AI solutions to, or you're selling these AI solutions to companies that don't understand the value that your solutions hold, and you're stuck paying very low retainers for them, and you're wondering how exactly you could turn these automations that you're building into an actual business. Now, before we get into how to sell them correctly, we need to start going over, what your issues are, what you're doing right now, so we could correct these problems. So, like I said, you're building these fancy workflows for only $300 a month, maybe $500 startup fee. And the reason is because you're packaging hours and features rather than the solution. And once you start packaging the solution, that's when you're able to take these $300 to $500 closes to $3,000 to $5,000 closes. So the wrong way to do it is selling AI automations. The whole issue is you're going to these businesses and you're saying, I am selling AI. What you need to do is you need to have some type of plan to solve their issues. You're an investment to them. Your software is an investment to them. So you need to sell what your software is going to do. So first you get the leak, and then you build the agent, and then you show them the result. So you talk to them and you figure out their problem, and then you say that this is the result and this is how I'm going to build it with this agent. And then you show them the result through the agent. Now, businesses, they only care about what's going to make them money, what's going to save them time, or what's going to allow them to have more focus on the actual job. Now, if it doesn't cover those three things, it is a toy, it is not an offer, it is not an investment, and it is not going to help them, so they will not care. So, outcome beats workflows. If you show them the ROI, they're going to understand. They're not going to understand the technical features. So, here's the issues that you're facing, right? They want AI. They don't want AI. They want more booked calls. They want lower churn rate. They want lower no-shows. They want to save money. Other people think that this won't work because they need to be super technical. No, you just need to solve their problems, and tech is your tool to solve those problems. You just need to show them the ROI. Another one is, I need 1,000 leads or 10,000 leads, and you really don't. You just need 3 to 5 businesses paying you a couple thousand a month. And, business owners, they all know each other, right? Car detailers, they know all the car detailers in the area. Dentists, they know all the dentists in the area. You just need 3 to 5 leads. And if you land one of them, it's just word of mouth through there. Another one is, I'll charge cheap to get momentum. If you start charging your services cheap, you are making your product cheap. If you are charging, less money, you're worth less money. You want to stand still on your offer, especially if you are getting more leads through word of mouth. Because if you set up something for $500 a month, Dr. Brown is going to go tell Dr. Alex that, it's only $500 a month, when it's a system easily worth $1,000 to $3,000 a month. And you're selling your time for that cheap fee when you're going to also have to throw in expensive to host the automations, to build the automations, to support it throughout the months. So, these clients, we're paying for time, we're paying for money, we're paying for focus. We want these things to benefit their business. they want the fixed car, they don't want the wrench, but you know how to use the wrench to fix the car. So that's what you need to sell them rather than selling the wrench. So who actually buys these automations? So digital service providers do. They have issues with manual onboarding, content, agents, they need copywriting, data tracking, things like that. Local service-based businesses, all right, their leaks are slow follow-ups, no-shows, missed reminders, automations that remind the customer 24 hours before an appointment actually reduces no-shows by 40%. So these are huge whenever it comes to making them money. They also need agents for appointment booking, lead follow-up, auto reminders. Startup and SaaS founders, their issues are churn, supports. So yeah, just build agents that make them not churn or, make their inbox reply to messages and issues faster automatically. And then e-commerce and online realtors, cart abandonment, customer support. So, if somebody has a cart full of clothes and they leave, 24 hours later, we could send a quick little text reminder, hey, you have stuff in your cart, like, do you want to purchase? Somebody was probably in the middle of something about to check out and completely forgot. Order tracking is a good one as well. And then FAQ automation, like chatbots, things like that. Maybe they have questions about sizing. They don't know if something is, I should buy something a size up because it's usually small, or size down because it's oversized. These can answer those questions fast, right? People don't really care to go to the FAQ and all that when they're in the middle of their cart, right? So these buyers, these are all leaks in these businesses that you could sell to make their life easier, to make them more money. Now, you probably knew all that, but how do we sell it, right? So, like I said earlier, we have the problem, the agent fixes the problem, and we get the result. So, let's just say a dentist is, having a bunch of no-shows, or a HVAC company is losing leads after opt-in. So we will make them a follow-up or a booking agent where, their appointments are automatically booked and they get follow-ups automatically 24 hours before. This stops the leak, this books the calls, and this closes those deals. So you're not selling them an automation that reminds them 24 hours before. You are selling them something that is going to reduce their no-shows by 40%. Buy signals, listen for pain points whenever you talk to these businesses. I forget follow-ups, we onboard manually, reporting eats hours. So, a lot of business owners don't want to sit there and text all their leads 24 hours before their appointments. We'll just automatically do it. They're so busy with, their employees, the actual job itself, payroll, things like that, that they're just, sending all those reminder texts are a pain. We onboard manually. They have to hire somebody to sit there and onboard somebody else when the person that they're hiring could quite honestly be doing the actual job. So this saves them hours. And then reporting needs hours. It saves them time sitting there having to type out a report about a closing call or whatnot. We could have a bot automate those things. So I guess the value in the money that they're saving. So your team spends 10 hours a week at $25 an hour paying somebody to train. And that's about, $1,000 a month. So if we automate this process for 60% of the fee, $600 a month, 7.2K a year is saved. And, we'll have the $3,000 set up. So ultimately, it'll take them about 5 months to pay all that money back. So, find every way to save them money, save them time, make them money, things like that. And the ROI will be clear to them and they'll be able to see the outcomes. Now, we want to package this like a product, right? So we want to give it a compelling name, a memorable name. So let's just say that we're just going to go with the example of the follow-ups before appointments to reduce no-shows by 40%. We'll just call this like a follow-up reminder. And we're going to sell the outcome and we'll say my process to automate all of your follow-ups will reduce no-shows by 40%. That's 40% more money in their account. And, price it accurately. So the pain, the impact, the setup, and then also, the support that you're going to have to do monthly. So ultimately, let's just say that let's say a company gets 10 appointments a week and each appointment is worth $100, right? So 4 of those appointments will be no-shows because they aren't doing appointment reminders. Well, this is going to make them $400 more a week. There's 4 weeks in a month. This is, making them 1.6K more a month, right? So ultimately, what if we charge the monthly fee about half of that? They're making $800 more a month with my process. And that's if, their services are that cheap, right? A lot of these like HVAC and things like that are roofing, thousands of dollars. Dental, if they don't have dental insurance, probably a few $100. Imagine that. And dentist office, there's always patients going in and out. Imagine how much money you could save them doing that. Make that clear to them and price it accurately depending on how much they make. Do the math. Ask them, how much are you, making per service? How many appointments are you booking a week? How many of those are no-shows? Blah, 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 blah. And then plug and play. So give them a clear scope of the work. Give them a timeline of when it's going to be done, what they're going to get, and, the payment terms. So this is where you're going to say, all right, I'm going to install my automated follow-ups. You are going to get something automated where all of your customers are going to get a text 24 hours before the appointment. And I'm going to charge this for about, $2,000 setup and $800 a month, right? And then over the course of, that's about 3 months, they're going to make money back on that and then start making an extra $800 a month if the services are that low. So the offer should feel like, you're getting a new tool on the shelf. If you give them the result and the clear installation process and the clear price, they're going to be on board. You're going to them saying, this is going to be the result, and not saying, I have AI, I'm selling it. I have AI, I'm selling it is going to scare them off. So pricing that makes sense. You could always just do a super high setup fee, anywhere from 1 to 10K. And make this scope reasonable whenever it comes to making their money back on the setup fee. You could also do a retainer, which I like to do like a mid-size setup fee and a mid-sized retainer, because a lot of the things that I build require hosting or, paying for certain accounts and things like that. So yeah, whenever it's like live revenue workflows, things like that, like appointment reminders, that's when you should have some type of retainer or some type of hosting or something that you have to update frequently. You could also do rev share, 10 to 30% per sale whenever an agent is used, and it directly drives the revenue. If you have a way to track that, go for it. But, appointment reminders, you're still going to remind people who were already going to show up anyways. So that's kind of a bad example whenever it comes to rev share. And then you could also do hybrid where, it's like a 2K setup fee plus 15% every single time it drives in revenue, things like that. For rev share and hybrid, that's probably cold call automations, things like that. Whenever a lead turns cold, we could have our automation follow up with them and make them warm again, and then you could get a percentage off of that. So, price with logic, not emotion. Respect the value. Be firm on your price. Don't lowball yourself. So, pricing assistant and first client. Fastlane. So, pick a buyer with the deal flow. So, don't pitch beginners. Don't pitch, new businesses not making a lot of money. They won't have the money to invest, and they don't know where their leaks in their business are yet. Now, if you are talking to a business that's just now starting up, I do recommend, just sell them a website for a quick, easy 1,000, $100 a month on top of that to host it and do minor changes whenever they need it, But other than that, I wouldn't sell any automations to first-time buyers. But it is a good door opener because, eventually down the line, once they start getting more clients, you could sell them a chatbot to the website or things like that, especially if you build it fast, they trust you, word of mouth, etc. So step 2 is discovery. So, ask them for a walkthrough in, a week of their life. And, how much money do they make in a week? How many clients do they bring in? How much do they charge per client? How many clients actually show up, and measure it and try to figure out how much money your automations can save or make them so you know how to pitch it. So run a 90-minute proof sprint. So after this, you say you have this type of automation that'll fix this issue that they're having, and you'd like to build them a demo. After that demo is booked, you run the 90-minute proof sprint. So 15 minutes on research, it'll take you about an hour to build the demo, and then, record a 15-minute loom with the camera on, or, some type of live presentation, prepare, practice, things like that. Take you an hour and a half. Step 4, you have the demo. Now you show them. Here's the leak. Here's the agent. Here's the result. Easy as that. That's when you start saying this is all automated, things like that. First, we're just pitching, we're going to fix this leak. Then once we get them in the demo, this is how the leak is going to be fixed. That's when AI to them is like, oh, wow, like that's perfect. It's not scary anymore. So price with the value lens, like we talked about earlier. How much money are we saving them? How much money are we making them? How much time are we saving them? Where does this benefit them? All right. Let me price this reasonably. Let me make this make sense. So, don't give out freebies. Small install window, action guarantee beats free work. My AI is worth this much because it guarantees results. If you start saying, I want to build this for free to see if it works, blah, 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 forget about it. Just forget about it. They won't take you seriously. They don't take that seriously. You're selling them something that works. You have to be confident in the product. You have to be confident in the price. So close with the outcome and timeline. So this agent will reduce your no-shows by 40% within 7 days, because it's going to take me 7 days to install it. Once it installs, your no-shows will be reduced by, 70%. And then try to deliver early, set expectations. You want to be that AI person for that business. You want to impress them so you get more leads from them, word of mouth, things like that. Extra things, reuse what works. The demo, 80% of that demo that you built them is going to be, what is used for the actual automation. Just swap the triggers, the outputs, connect it to their CRM, whatever it may be. Don't sit there and rebuild it and waste that hour that you used to build the demo. And, get social proof. This is huge. Make them all case studies, some type of review, some type of video testimony, some type of text testimony. Use their business name whenever you're reaching out to other businesses, things like that. So yeah, that's how you take prospects into paying clients. So why this works, right? Matches what buyers value. They want outcomes. They don't care about tech. They don't want all the tech talk. They don't care about your technical skills. They care about themselves. They're selfish. How are they going to make money? How are they going to save money? How are they going to save time? Right? That's what they care about, not the tech. And it's proven, all right? I went from, $100 Fiverr websites, $50 Fiverr logos to, making 10K a month. It's protected, action guarantees and performance alignment, right? So this will guarantee you 40% less no-shows. This will, my work is proven. You could see the performance, you could see the results. If you give them a clear and a measurable ROI, each agent anchors to one metric. Show up rate, time to respond, churn rate, things like that, right? The measurable ROI is 40% less no-shows. That's 40% more money. Compounding leverage, templates installed, faster delivery, higher margins. If they really want automation and they're finding an issue in another area of their business, or you come out with something new, you could reach out to them, and over time, you'll just have more things to offer them, stuff like that. And then a scalable framework, you build once, you deploy many times across all, clients. And, just receiving texts, it doesn't have to be, customized for so many people. It's not like a website or an app where they need their logo and this and that. It's a text bot, it's very minimal. You just copy it over and you connect the automation to the different CRM ultimately, Now you know who buys it and how to pitch it. Now go implement it, right? If you need a one-on-one help with landing your first high-ticket AI client, the booking link is in the description below. Now go make some money.